Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, much to discuss. Lots of football in action. Messi in Jamaica, Liverpool losing the Carabao Cup. And of course, Arsenal getting the better of Chelsea and cutting that lead at the top of the table. Now, joining me this evening to talk some EPL football and to look back at the weekend's action, we are returning to the podcast, Christoph.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, indeed, Christoph. Lots to discuss, lots to break down, lots to dissect. But let's kick things off. Back home in Jamaica, Messi, King of Kingston. Talk to us about that game, Christoph. I mean, that
Mm,
was one for the fans. That was a historic
I,
moment
I
and
don't know
one which will
about
live long in the memory of many Jamaicans.
I don't know about any King of Kingston or any nonsense like that. Um,
Well, I
uh,
mean, the man came and conquered, getting a goal in the dying moments and leaving his mark on that game. And of course, leaving a big impression on the
well,
Jamaican public. I'm sure Argentina for the next World Cup will have a lot more Jamaican support in Argentina, especially if Messi is still around to see that one.
no doubt Messi will probably play in that next World Cup. Probably will be his last World Cup. Will probably be Cristiano Ronaldo's last World Cup as well. Um, I, I I think in the instance of Cavaliers versus Inter Miami, it seemed to me as if potentially Cavaliers had already given up um after losing that first leg, controversially 2-0. And then there was the prospect of seeing Messi play. I think there was some starstruck um
Mixed emotions, especially from the Jamaican fans as
right,
well.
right.
I mean, when you think the Jamaican public would have been supporting Cavaliers, much of the fans came out in Argentinian or Inter Miami jersey. It was almost
They
like a home game for Inter Miami.
came out to see Messi. Yeah, I mean, uh, Cavaliers had already basically given up. Messi scored 90 plus minutes in, they no longer cared about the result. They no longer had any thoughts that they were going to potentially go through or anything like that. So I
I
think that
mean,
was
even
it.
the stadium, Christoph, the stadium was packed to the rafters. I have not seen the national stadium with so many people. That must have been the 98 campaign, way back in the 90s when Jamaica qualified for the 98 World Cup. That was the last time I've seen so many people in the stadium, never since. And it took Messi to really bring that fan base out. But of course, we know Jamaica has a wagonist culture in all honesty and don't seem to support the football unless the team is actually winning and performing. And some star
Uh,
players have risen to the top.
I don't. You could argue that it's a Waganese culture. I
Yes,
don't think
man. Big
that's it. I
wagon
don't.
is
I don't. I don't think that's it. I
mentality in
think.
Jamaica.
I think it's a case where there are a lot of fans who are Waganists. I'm not
Right?
going to argue that. I think. I think for those the remainders is not a Waganist thing. I think it's a case where too much disappointment is the case where they're at the point where they don't expect anything.
Right. Plus the poor administration of the JFF over the years as well. That has not helped the football.
Right.
To me, I would blame it on the poor JFF administration, to be honest with you. That has been one of the bitter pills that the Jamaican public has to swallow as it relates to football. And of course, the team is not covering itself in glory in either case. But some interesting matches coming up in this international break, Christopher. Jamaica plays St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So that's definitely a game we can look to see Jamaica in action. Some interesting selections for that game, and
Mason
we'll
Greenwood,
see how
Leon Bailey.
far uh, the new coach McLaren has taken this team, and indeed leading into the World Cup qualifying campaign. A number of new faces and some old as well. But we'll definitely see what transpires. But I'm happy for the Jamaican public, happy for the fans. A historic moment, as I said. Long will live this in the memories and history of Jamaica. Pele came to Jamaica, and now we see Messi following in a similar full stop. And also, ironically, the game was against the same club.
Cavaliers.
So, it's almost as if it's history repeating itself. Two of probably, arguably, the two of the greatest player to play the game, gracing Jamaica with their presence and playing a match versus the same club, you know, several years apart. So it's a good look for Jamaica, it's a good look for football, and definitely the fans will have something to talk about. But going back to our usual schedule, though, Christoph, Liverpool, that was a big game on the weekend. Liverpool going down to Newcastle. Have the wheels fallen off, Christoph? And if Arsenal was closer, could we be talking about a title race going down the stretch?
Um, Well, potentially had Arsenal not had so many injuries and the referees not being against them, I think it would be Arsenal running away with the title now. But this is a big worry, I think, for Liverpool. Similar situation happening last season, where in the space of a week they basically dropped out of every competition, and it
That's
seems to
true.
be
That's true.
repeating so far. Fortunately for them, they do have a relatively big lead on the EPL, so they can how you say, they have
Well, they
a
only have
buffer,
one
3 games,
competition left.
right? So
They have to throw everything into
they
this
have
EPL title charge.
they have a 3 game buffer, 3 win buffer for them. The biggest concern though is what kind of psychological effect this could be potentially having on the players, with
Yeah, I don't see it having any long-term psychological
no,
impact,
well, not
especially
long term,
because we're
short
going
term.
on the international break now. So this will give both players and coach an opportunity to refresh, to have a change of environment, to experience a different mindset, that pressure is now off in all honesty. As you mentioned, there is a good little gap at the top of the table. So to me, the players will come back refreshed, readjusted and rearing to go. I mean, this is the only competition now that this team has to look forward to. Disappointment of the Champions League, disappointment of the Carabao Cup. So the only silverware that Liverpool can possibly win is the EPL title. And at this point, I don't see it slipping from them, especially with the schedule and them having a number of games at home. It should be a fairly straightforward walk to the title, in all honesty. In fact, that third to last game versus Arsenal may possibly have to give Liverpool a guard of honor. That game in and of itself may become a dead rubber.
Too early to say at this point. We have to look at the Liverpool form going forward. The next 3 games could be pivotal in the title race. So we'll see.
Well, that is indeed true. That is indeed true. But bearing in mind as well, though, Christoph, Arsenal has to play their part. Arsenal have to come up with the wins. And over the weekend they barely scraped past Chelsea. So
Um,
all is
I,
not necessarily well in the Arsenal camp either.
I,
Plus, they're
all
in two
is
competitions also. So,
all is not well in the Arsenal camp. That lack of a striker, but it's not just
but
that
it
lack of
was
a
that man
striker. It
Moreno,
was,
Christoph, coming up
Mar-
with the goods. Has
yeah,
he now
definitely
found
half
his
of a.
role?
Uh, Too early to say. Can't say.
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
think.
comparatively speaking, when you look around at other strikers at this moment, I mean, he's coming up with the goods.
Yeah, he's coming up with the goods, but Arsenal do create a number of chances. So, if you score one in every 100 now, is that if your team create a
Or
hundred,
you're still not too impressed by Moreno as a long-term replacement, so to speak. This is more of a makeshift type situation.
this is not a permanent solution. This is makeshift. Arsenal have no other choice but to play somebody in that striker role. I'm guessing
Right.
there's nobody in the under 23s youth academies that they feel is at that level that they
Mm,
can play so they're playing Marino. I mean, certainly there was another striker, Marino would not be getting that center forward role.
right, right, right.
But
This is where memories of Nketiah, Christoph, may have kicked in. No, had Nketiah been at the club, this role would probably have suited him perfectly.
probably no pressure on, all he needs to do is get those goals. But no, I don't think Arsenal barely scraped by Chelsea. Chelsea did absolutely nothing
Well,
to
that
to
man Cole Palmer was absent from the game, and as per usual, you stop Cole Palmer, you stop Chelsea. In this case, he was not playing, injured, I believe. So said, so done. No Cole Palmer, and Chelsea appear toothless in front of
I
both.
Chelsea indeed very toothless. They had like maybe a couple of shots or a couple of chances that looked potentially dangerous but fizzled out. But ultimately Arsenal did get that early goal from the set piece. The problem with to me, in that game, you said barely got through. I don't think so. Arsenal, that should have been a 2-0 win. They again, poor refereeing. I don't know how you review a challenge and then miss the clear and obvious handball in the box that should have been a penalty. They looked at it. They looked at and still missed it. I don't understand. You looked at the particular challenge. You missed the handball. Weird. I saw where Chelsea should have gotten two reds. Had the reverse situation happened in there where it was an Arsenal player,
You're
it
saying
would have been
Arsenal
a
would have
straight
been
red.
down 2 men.
Straight red. It would have been two straight red for Arsenal. Caicedo stamping on Rice, no card given. Absolutely wild to me. Had that been a reverse of Rice stamping on Caicedo straight red, it would be no
Mm,
question. There would be no question. It would be a straight red, and then we
I'm
would be
not
hearing
sure
about
if they were if
Arsenal's disciplinary issues.
right,
But,
right, right.
but I have to look at the fact that this is the same referee that gave Declan Rice a red card after he was chopped down by a Brighton player. So I don't know.
Oh, you mean that second yellow for time wasting? Or for
Alleged time wasting, since because Arsenal is the only team that
well,
has received any
well,
cards
it
for
seems
time
like
wasting.
Arsenal is it tops the league in terms of time wasting when you really check the statistics, the last statistics I saw.
That
So I mean,
that is
it's neither here nor there. Maybe
whether
it's a
whether
coaching
whether
tactic by Arteta to slow the
whether or
game down.
not Arsenal top the league in time wasting, other teams time waste and have received no cards this season. Arsenal is the only team all season that has received cards for time wasting and has had players sent off for time wasting.
So it seems as if the FA have some sort of vendetta against Arsenal.
And yeah, we see it at the forefront. Is not the first season where we've seen poor refereeing against Arsenal. I highly doubt it will be the last, but last 3 seasons we've seen where refereeing decisions have cost Arsenal points, and we've seen it again this season.
Mm.
Poor refereeing in this game, and in particular that penalty that was not given, clear and obvious penalty. You didn't even need to watch the replay to see that it was a handball.
Indeed, we just have to look on and what can we say? I guess it's parts and parcels of the game, but I mean, we just have to absorb our hits, Christoph, and move on. No point crying over spilled milk. At the end of the day, in this game in particular, Arsenal came away with the 3 points and have, in the absence of any games from Liverpool, have closed the gap at the top of the table, even though it may be temporary, but applying a bit of pressure nevertheless. So interesting times ahead for sure. But some other interesting games, Christoph, were on over the weekend in the EPL. Man City again being held by Brighton, taking the lead twice, and Brighton coming from behind to eke out a 2-2 draw. Is this the Man City we'll be seeing going forward? I mean, not much has changed since that horrendously poor form mid EPL season, Christoph. Not much has changed at all. I mean, the new signings have come in, gave a little spark, but it seems as if things are back to where they were previously.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, it looked like they had kind of stemmed the 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 losses. They've cut the losses. The losses are,
Right.
are no longer really a major issue, but they are weak. They're vulnerable at the back.
Yeah,
Uh,
defensively very
defensively
poor.
poor. Defensively poor. Again, it's not just Rodri, but that shield in front of the defense. It's basically non-existent at the moment
Right.
for
Or
them.
the
And
defense itself, to be honest.
no, yeah, yeah, the defense is definitely weak, but
Mhm.
that having a good defensive midfielder
Right.
sometimes
Yeah, can
offset that,
yeah,
but that's
offset
not
that or cover of paper over the cracks.
right. So
But in
no,
terms of the actual defenders which are there, yeah, definitely. Not much to write home about. Even that new signing, to me, he hasn't been impressive at all, Christoph. I mean, he is, and to me, thus far, he's looked quite average as an EPL defender. So,
right.
not much
Well,
to write home about. Marmouch has impressed me somewhat. I think Marmoush was a good signing or is a good signing. I
Hmm.
think he does have a future in the EPL, whether playing through the middle or out on the flanks or playing that number 10 role. Pep has a role for him. He's very active up front, can put away a strike as well. And as we saw, he was involved in both goals, drawing a penalty, and then, of course, connecting on the second goal. So to me, he looks like a proper signing going
Yeah.
forward. But the defender,
Kushanov.
Pushinov, not very impressive to me, to be honest.
I mean,
Not very impressive.
at the moment he looks
I think
absolutely.
better defenders are available in the EPL. Defender like Gehi, for example,
He
from Crystal
looks
Palace.
he
To me, he's a
looks
better defender.
absolutely he looks absolutely distraught. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them loaning him out or something in the summer, to be honest. He
Yeah, hasn't been
looks
impressive at all.
no.
Pep should have probably gone for a try, test, and proven EPL defender. As I said, Gehi is a player which comes to mind, but I'm not sure if cost was a factor. I mean, he may still be pursued in the summer. Liverpool probably needs a defender as well. Injuries have shown up some of the weaknesses in this Liverpool team. So, Liverpool should definitely be looking to make a number of signings, especially with certain contracts running out and no clear sign if those contracts will be renewed. So, a number of signings should be coming in, but City for sure need a serious rebuild, and this is probably one of the first opportunities that Pep will have in his career to really rebuild a team. This should, if he can do this successfully, Christoph, would you say he is the GOAT of managers? If
No,
he
not
was to
necessarily.
rebuild the City team, go on to win, let's say, another EPL or and the Champions League title.
N Not necessarily, right? Sir Alex Ferguson did it for a very, very long time, and he didn't start out with oil money or anything like. He couldn't buy any player that he wanted. He started out with what you would
But
say is
I
a
mean, in terms of
very
the oil money,
poor.
not to cut you, but in terms of the oil money, hasn't the new rule with the EPL now eliminated the oil money situation, and teams are now operating within a strict regime
Um,
or a stricter regime.
Not necessarily, because
Mm.
Man City have a number of charges against them, and we don't know if they are found guilty or not. Right, so we can't say, all right, that is also hanging over Pep's legacy. Because if it's a case where they are guilty,
Well,
then
I'm referring more to the financial fair play rules which
yeah,
the EPL
but
have in play.
the charges have to do with those as well.
Uh,
Right,
so
so I'm
until
saying,
those charges are clear, then we have to keep an eye on City.
until those charges are, yeah, but if City were found guilty of charges in Pep's tenure, then
Right.
it would kind of remove him from potentially one of the greatest managers ever, because it means there was some unfair advantage that he was
Mm,
gifted. So for
interesting take
me,
there.
for me, right
Yes.
now,
Hmm.
until the future, Sir Alex Ferguson is the greatest manager ever.
So where would Pep rank for you personally in the EPL as a manager? Where would Pep rank? Would Pep rank above a manager like a Wenger, for example, a David Moyes, a Klopp?
Definitely above a David Moyes and a Klopp. Um, just based on trophies, one I would rank him better than a Wenger. But again, Wenger took what was a normal Arsenal team and won several titles. Won the season invincible. Pep, despite all that money spending, all that possession, has not done anything even close to that at
Well, I
anywhere.
mean, they did
So,
go on to win the treble,
but
matching the United
and
treble.
there is also, the longevity. Arsenal did it. Arsene Wenger did it with not a lot of money.
So
So
for you, it's Sir Alex, then Pep, then Wenger.
it depends on the criteria. So
No,
again,
I'm asking
again,
personally you, just your personal
pre-
opinion.
I think
Delving into the criteria, just your personal views.
based on trophies, one you would say Pep is a better manager than Arsene Wenger. But
So,
again, Sir Alex Ferguson, longevity. Arsene Wenger, longevity. They did it repeatedly
so you're
over.
saying for you, Sir Alex number one,
Sir Alex, number one, not
Pep
in
number
question for me.
two.
Number two, but questionable.
And then Wenger would be three then. I'm taking it.
Three, potentially two, based on some charges that Pep face.
Interesting times, interesting time. I mean, that's not a bad list, in all honesty. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that list, really. In the modern era of the EPL, uh, probably any other name being thrown in there, you would really have to go back to the days of when Liverpool was dominant, maybe under Dalglish or so. But in the modern era since '92, when the EPL became the EPL, so to speak, then yeah, it's hard to disagree with that list, as you say, in terms of longevity, trophies won, and just watching the football in terms of the eye test and the sort of standard and quality which these managers bring to the game. So I'm not gonna disagree with that list, but it's just a question to ponder upon. But as you say, we'll hold our breath as it relates to the charges. But for sure, a major rebuild is required at City, and Pep seems to be the one who will take that on come the summer. So it will be interesting, as I said, if your opinion shift, if Pep is able to foster this rebuild, go on to lift the title, and or potentially another Champions League before he calls it quits at City.
Uh, You know what would cement Pep being the greatest in my mind is if he were to take, a regular average team
Hmm.
to, title winning, not some team that has an unlimited bank book, but take a
Right.
team that has they've been there, but it's not been enough, or
So
and
like
they don't.
at Forest, for example, or a Brighton,
uh,
or a West Ham.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Say for instance, Nottingham Forest was to somehow, pip Liverpool to the title and win it. No, Espirito Santo would go down as one of the greatest managers of all time. All right,
But
so
I mean, if Nottingham Forest was to finish in the top four, that would be seen as a massive feat
oh,
for Nuno
they,
as well, and
they're
that is very possible at this current point in time.
I don't think they should fall out of that top four. They should finish in the top four. I'm just saying, should they somehow overcome Liverpool, win the title, it would be seen. Would be seen as one of the greatest managers. You probably hear Bayern Munich calling to sign him. To be honest, because what he has done with Nottingham Forest has been
Right, right.
nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah,
So
definitely,
my
definitely. He should definitely be in the conversation for manager of the year.
definitely. So for me, if Pep was to do something like that with a team like that, it would cement in my mind, regardless of any charges or
Well, I
whatever,
don't
that
really
he
see
is the
that happening,
greatest.
to be honest,
No,
though,
that will never
Christopher. I
happen for
mean,
him. That will never happen because
yeah, I don't
he
really
will
see that
never
happening. But
take on a
in
team where
real
he can't
terms,
spend money.
though, in real terms, when you really look at something like the greatest managers, that award usually doesn't go to managers of mid to lower table clubs.
Hmm.
Usually it goes for big name clubs who consistently win titles and are able to sign the better players. So, I mean, that conversation is really a
Yeah,
non-starter
yeah,
in all
yeah.
honesty.
But if you are a manager and you take a Nottingham Forest and you start winning trophies with Nottingham Forest, then Nottingham Forest becomes a top team and they continuously are able to
Well,
sign the best players,
well,
win titles, and so on. So,
in
you know,
this modern era, I don't see it happening, to be honest.
Manchester United was not a top team when Sir Alex took them over. All right.
Well,
Arsenal was not well, not that Arsenal had never won the league, but Arsenal was not necessarily competing for the title for the last couple of years before Arsene Wenger. George Graham did win the title with Arsenal on I think two occasions, but they were struggling before Arsene Wenger came along. And he came, he not only changed Arsenal,
but
but
I
he
mean,
changed
the
how
same
all the
could be said
clubs.
of Man City, though, Christoph. Under Pep, Man
No,
City was
no, no,
struggling
no, no,
along.
no, 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 no. Don't come
Man
with that.
City wasn't the juggernaut
Man,
that they are now before Pep.
no, false. Man City had started winning the EPL title before that.
Yeah,
When
but
they got
not
that in
showing the
future,
dominance which they have shown under Pep.
right?
Winning four in a row,
They have
treble.
sh
Come on.
they have
You
showed
have
that,
to give credit where credit is due.
and yeah, and I said
They
credit.
started to win, yes, but they hadn't developed the legacy and the reputation they have now with Pep at the helm. Four in a row. That has never been done by a team in the EPL before. Winning the treble among that as well, winning the Champions League, which have eluded so many other City managers also. So the sort of dominance which City have shown under.
But I do give him credit. I have rated him as potentially the second best manager ever. But
Mm.
he, again, he cannot surpass Sir Alex for me until
So you're
he
saying
has
longevity as
the
well as.
longevity and, doing it when you have limited resources is also key. City, basically, you can say City has unlimited resources, right?
No, but I'm
City,
saying with the new financial fair play which have now been implemented, you pretty much can't spend more than you're earning now. That's what I'm
but
saying. So
we
in a
don't we
sense,
we don't know if City has broken those rules or not.
well, let's assume that they are playing the game fair.
I don't make that assumption until those charges are gone. I don't make that assumption. At the
Yeah, I
moment,
think
to
the
me,
financial fair play rules have somewhat leveled the playing field. So it's a case of teams, managers, organization putting their money to the best use possible,
I
as opposed to
actually
having an unlimited checkbook as it was previously.
I think one of the things that football, European football in particular, could benefit from is something similar to the American system in basketball and NFL, where there's probably a spending cap,
Right?
team spending cap and probably a wage cap that teams are restricted to. It would make things more competitive, and it would certainly help the smaller teams to compete against the
Right,
bigger teams
right.
in terms of signings and so on. So I think that's
Yeah,
something that they
definitely.
should
Yeah,
they
that
should look
that
at.
that. But I mean, the financial fair play is something like that. In all honesty, in the
Yeah, but
sense that,
you would have now a definite set amount. This team cannot spend more than that. That team cannot,
yeah, for sure.
and
But
you'd be able to see if they went over.
yeah, but I think this system operates similarly in the sense that even if you had a wage cap, it would still be the bigger teams that are able to spend the heaviest.
Mhm.
With this system, it's based on your profitability. So
Right.
you're not you can't spend more than what you don't have in term. Well, at least you can, but to a certain degree, to a percentage. So you're not going into you can't be putting all your eggs in one basket and then the club ends up in bankruptcy, as has happened to a number of clubs. It, coming to mind clubs like Portsmouth, where they went all out, signing some big name players. Things didn't work out, and the club became bankrupt because they could not service their debt. So, in a sense, the financial fair play has that buffer, or it gives clubs that buffer where you're not spending beyond your means. And as you said, it benefits the small team in that it's helpful and it doesn't allow them to spend beyond what they're earning. So, as I said, managers and organizations now have to come up with creative ways. Scouting departments have to find some gems and try to polish them up. So it's a little fairer, but still, regardless of which system is in play, the bigger teams will still have that advantage. And but for sure, it has definitely leveled the playing field somewhat, and we are seeing it being reflected with Liverpool. No signings over the summer, or one signing in January, and they're leading the league. So it's sometimes it's not all about signing. Sometimes it's about working with what you have as well and getting the best out of the players at your disposal. So it allows coaches as well to really bring their skill set to the fore and getting the best out of the players they have at their disposal. But interesting times ahead. I mean, the game is constantly evolving, Christoph. I mean, rules are constantly changing. The implementation of technology is there as well. New competition formats are changing. So the game is constantly evolving, and it's interesting what the game will look like in another 10, 15, 20 years. Will it be recognizable? Can we look back and still call it football? Interesting times ahead for sure. But anything further standing out for you over the weekend, though, Christoph? Any other results which caught your attention?
Probably Manchester United, Leicester, and Fulham, Tottenham. I think were interesting watches, to be honest. Manchester United more so in that they've continued their momentum. I mean, Leicester is a team that should be winning. They should be beating just because of how poor they are and how poor they've been all season. Um, but in terms of for Man United fans and probably for Amarin in general, it's good for them to get keep that momentum rolling along. Um, Again, it's Leicester. I'm not necessarily. I mean, I expect Man
Relegation, I
United
mean, it's
relegation
a
team.
yeah, for sure. It's a
I
relegation team.
in general, every game United go into, I expect them to either draw or lose, to be honest, right now. But the momentum for them has carried over. You know, I guess drawing with Arsenal gave them some momentum. They carried that into the Europa League. They won that, carried that into the weekend. They won again. So good for Amarin, good for
So
United,
has
good for the
would you
fans.
say Amarin has turned the corner at this stage then?
I don't know yet. We can't use Leicester as a guide. We can't use that game as a guide. We have to
Well, I mean, he needed some positive results for sure.
he needs some positive result. What we have to look at is, how they will play against teams, in a similar position in the table or above them in the table, how they play that. Then I will say, looks like they turn the corner. That is when I will say that. And Tottenham, Tottenham. I don't know what Tottenham is doing. I don't know what Tottenham is doing. They're
I
being
mean, it's been a downhill spiral for Tottenham, to be honest. Players, I think it's just quality players. Injury hit them early, and even some of those players are just coming back. But just pretty much a skeleton squad. The depth, quality in depth is lacking at Spurs currently. And that is definitely taking its toll or has taken its toll over the course of the season. So it's just quality in depth, and as well as possibly failure to adapt his tactics when faced with these obstacles as well, or not having the players at his disposal and failing to really adapt or adjust his tactics to differing opponents. So it's a combination of factors. I mean, players like Son Christoph have dropped off the face of the EPL, in all honesty. They've looked a shadow of himself over the course of this season when compared to the Son of old. And probably he's on a downhill spiral. So probably
uh,
players are now aging out as well.
could be a downward spiral, could be the tactics. Not sure.
I feel it's a
Time.
combination of both.
Yeah, it could be a combination. We look at players like Kevin De Bruyne, who has,
Right, similarly. Exactly. You've passed your prime now and you're on your way down. You're over the hill, so to speak. Players like Madison, Son, those are the go-to guys 2 or 3 years ago, when Spurs was firing, so to speak, But ever since the loss of Kane, the talismanic striker, it's been a downhill spiral. Those goals have not been replaced in the Spurs team, and defensively, they've not gotten better either. So it's a combination of factors. Hopefully next season we can see some improvement with a few new signings, but it's just a case of seeing out the rest of the season and trying to get the best results possible as it relates to Spurs. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yep, but that was the EPL action. I mean, we now go on an international break, so this is an opportunity for us to catch our breath and take in some international action. We see a number of teams should be active during this period, and this will give you a great insight into how potential World Cup qualifiers will look going forward and what sort of squad teams will be rolling out. But thanks again, viewers and subscribers, to tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Christoph, thanks again for coming on board and really sharing your thoughts and your opinions. It is definitely appreciated and a breath of fresh air when it comes to talking some football in general. But viewers and subscribers, please continue to support us by sharing the podcast, leaving a comment. And of course, if you haven't subscribed as yet, hit that subscription bell. Help us to continue to grow the channel. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.